All right, welcome to A Growing Concern. We're going to get right to it because we have two different segments. First segment will be the Burgerville Workers Union, and the second one will be the New Seasons Workers. We're doing labor tonight, and I try to do that as often as possible because it's important for unions to start gaining back some of the ground they've lost over the years. But the Burgerville Workers Union, it's an independent collective voice of Burgerville workers. And I have as our guest Mark Medina. Mark is involved with that, and we were just discussing a little bit about the issues. Just a couple quick questions. First, this organizing has been going on since 2015, you said, April?
Yeah.
And so it's been building up speed since the following year, and then more so since then.
Yeah, and the union went public at several shops across Portland and Vancouver on April 26th of 2016. And rolled on another shop in public, my shop, on May 19th of that same year.
By public, you mean you were just picketing, or?
Oh, we meaning that workers of those shops came public with being members of the union. So that at that point, on April 20, the organizing goes back further. People that had been at Burgerville before, workers that were tired of the wages at Burgerville and just the low-wage economy of fast food, the lowest organized industry, and also the incredibly profitable industry that doesn't trickle down to workers. And so workers were fed up at several shops, started talking about organizing, and contacted the IWW, and the organizing began about a year before, and slowly having conversations with workers at different shops from 26 and Powell, Vancouver Plaza, the airport, decided that on April 26th they would contact corporate, carry out we did a rally from the Clinton Street Theater where we did a big coming out party, and then we marched down to the 26th and Powell, Burgerville, with about 100 or so community supporters and workers, and same happened at different shops. We told managers and GMs that we're going public with the union, that we want representation, we want them to negotiate.
All right. So, yeah, I didn't think that there was not an established union yet. You weren't negotiating a contract.
No.
You were trying to establish it. And I know this has received some corporate media coverage, as well as Facebook and the website, and we'll be putting that information up as we go through the program. So that was one of my first questions, though. Is this PDX only? Is this Oregon only? So it's a group of Burgerville workers from various Burgervilles, and there's a lot of them around, had meetings where they all met together, and then they made these decisions?
Yeah. I mean, as time has gone on, like, the inner workings of the union has changed. It's always been the BVW and the IWW by extension. We're affiliated with the Industrial Workers of the World. Is a horizontal labor union. All decisions are made by workers. And so a lot of these decisions were made by stewards and by leaders in shops, and many a vote is made on the future, the direction of the campaign, and when actions are done and when they're not, and when we should do them. A lot of workers met at different shops individually, decided what was most appropriate, and they all decided on April 26th to go public and confront management, saying that we're tired of these wages. You make millions of dollars in profits. There's no reason why we shouldn't afford a living wage, and went public and told their managers that we want the company to negotiate voluntarily with us. Since then, the company has been going down a very progressively low road of attacking workers and maligning the union, and obviously to this point not negotiating, which is ridiculous. That's the way they've chosen to go.
Well, it seems to me that their big thing is it's all local. And it seems to me they're trying to orient themselves as at least maybe not out saying it, but they're members of the community. They're not all over the country like Wendy's and Burger King and all those. And so, and they're also the most expensive of them all by a long rate.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense that they couldn't give the workers more money.
No, I mean, Burgerville touts its corporate messaging. Advertising is very much that they're sustainable, and that they care about their beef, and they care about their food, and that they care about the community. And the motto of Burgerville is, we serve with love. It's what you're told when you're hired on. But if you care about your beef and you care where your food comes from, you should also care about the workers that work under you, that make all your profits. You should care about them and where do they sleep at night. Are they able to afford their rent? Can they afford to go to school? Can they afford to help their brother or sister who's maybe going through medical situations. These are the things you can't do on a Burgerville wage, and they know it, and they could make a difference. They're an incredibly profitable company. Yes, they're not across the country, but they're a very profitable company, very well known in the Northwest, and that advertising is disingenuous.
I've seen signs were saying only 8,000 miles to the next Burgerville or something like that. Got to go around the world and come back, something like that. And I think the first time I ever saw a commercial they had saying this is a typical burger, and he beats it on the desk and it's frozen. And that was part of their selling was it's not beef that's frozen.
Yeah,
And they're still doing that. Is that part of their stick?
I mean, they've frozen our salaries. That's not gone up.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You led into that one. Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you folks haven't probably had the only raises you get, I should paraphrase that, is the raises that are given you for minimum wage.
Yeah. I mean, and that's actually when we talk to our workers about that, and our workers are ecstatic when they got the minimum wage. And one of the corrections we have to make for workers, because managers definitely don't point it this way, is that the increases in wages that we've gotten over the last year or so that I've been a Burgerville worker have not come through the benevolence of Burgerville corporate. It's come because labor unions and across Oregon and Washington and in the United States have pushed the increase in minimum wage and have fought for this and have gotten in state capitals in Washington and here. And the only reason why those wages have gone up is not because of their benevolence, not because they care necessarily about us, but because they were forced by law, because workers in other industries and other unions and through their officials and through their labor organizations were able to have those victories. And we hope to have a victory as well.
Like 15 now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we've had folks from there on.
Yeah.
I'm always curious, when you hear about that, I've seen on Facebook where it'll say Japan, the CEOs or whatever make 15 times the entry worker and all that, and you get down to U.S., it's like 400 times.
Yeah.
And have you been able to determine, what the upper management is making there?
We have a general idea of from what we know. So we have a general idea. They're probably held companies, so a lot of their internal finances we're not privy to, but we have a general idea of how much they make. We do know a lot of their executives in the Palacio states that they live in, several of which several workers have seen them or heard about them through managers. They're pretty enormous. I mean, these people are not, they're not worrying about where their next check comes from. We are, and they're very well off, and they expand all the time. And they want to expand all the time, and they're very much able to, and they're not hamstrung by finances. They're doing really well. Workers aren't, and their company's doing really well specifically because we're not.
And that's pretty much been the situation between management and workers since Karl Marx or whatever, since the very beginning.
Sure.
And it seems to me that. I did see on your website that there's a few bullet points, and we should go through some of those because we want to move on to the situation that happened on November 10th as well, and we'll just dangle that out there for folks. You can be curious about what we're talking about. But there's a few bullet points, and of course, the money always comes up, but that's not the only reason folks are wanting to get your union.
Oh, sure, no. I think, honestly, when you talk to workers, one of the things you discover is people have different reasons for joining a union, supporting a union, and wanting to be a part of a movement that's greater than themselves. And it's not always just monetary, although that is a very significant part of it. We want better affordable health care. We want paternity and maternity care. A lot of the people that we work with are very hard workers, are mothers and fathers, and they deserve that. We want paid holidays. Other workers have paid holidays. I used to be a union worker for SEIU Local 49. I got paid holidays, and that was very useful. It meant that when there's a holiday, that doesn't mean that you have to. You can actually celebrate that holiday and not just wonder where am I going to come up with that day's check that I'm not going to go to work.
Or you get time and a half if you work.
Exactly. So time and a half is another thing that we're demanding. We're also demanding that we have safer working conditions. Workers get hurt all the time. It's very one of the things. Yeah, oh, definitely. One of the things that's very unreported by workers. Burns is a very common thing from oil or from malfunctioning equipment. This happens all the time. It was just a couple days ago there was a gas leak at a Burgerville where workers at, and there was a story that one of my managers actually told me from years ago, and she told it with very jovially, like it was a funny story, and I saw it as a horror story where there was a fire in a Burgerville at 92nd and Powell, and I have managers that can corroborate this story, who are no longer managers, so they don't particularly care anymore about telling it, who said there was a fire inside the Burgerville. and it was being contained. And even though there was a fire inside the Burgerville, workers and managers still continued to work. The company would not let the Burgerville shut down, even though people's lives were in danger. I definitely wouldn't want to work
Well,
under
at
those
least
conditions.
from smoke anyway.
Yeah, and that was another thing, that there was a ton of smoke, and again, they tell it as a jovial story. Workers tell it as a jovial story from time to time. That's what poverty and poverty and desperation does to you. It makes a terrible situation. You kind of have to force yourself into justifying continuing to work through those conditions. Back to the points of the bullet points, and one of the greater demands that we have, and one of the newer demands that we've had, it came through the Black and Brown Caucus of the Burgerville Workers Union. The Burgerville Workers Union has a Black and Brown Caucus where minority members of the union can talk about issues outside of wages and benefits, what is affecting their community, and we came up with democratically with a condition of the idea of sanctuary Burgerville for Burgerville, and starting with Burgerville, but also for the community as a whole, the business community as a whole, to voluntarily move themselves from E-Verify. As long as the Trump regime exists and is attacking immigrant families, no company should voluntarily put their workers at risk, or people who are at risk, immigrants, by voluntarily giving that information to the federal government. So the Black and Brown Caucus decided was that it doesn't do a worker a whole lot of good if they're free to live in Portland and walk the streets, but they're living destitute because they can't find a job because they're afraid of a knock on the door from ICE if they apply for a job. And so we think this is the next demand that we have to do for workers.
I hadn't thought of it. That's great. That E-Verify, what was that?
E-Verify, yeah. E-Verify is a system whereby the federal government gets information on the document status of workers, and it's a terrible system. And right now, when we have a regime in power that has is on the offensive against immigrant families, we owe it to our communities and our workers in our communities to defend ourselves and not allow that information to go forward.
Well, that sounds pretty draconian or Stalinistic or something.
Sure.
That's pretty terrible. That this has been going on. This is already implemented, right?
E-Verify is implemented in Oregon, but it is voluntary. So companies can voluntarily remove themselves. They just choose not to. And it's time that they make a stand. If you care about your community, well, do you care about the immigrant community? If not, then you make it clear by not voluntarily moving yourself.
Have you folks been able to determine what kind of political contributions that Burgerville makes?
No, but we'd love for Jeff Harvey and whoever the new executives to be proud and open and tell us what they are. We would love that.
He's the new what?
Oh, Jeff Harvey, or the new CEO. Jeff Harvey was the previous CEO of Burgerville, left a couple months ago from the company. There's a new CEO from this organization called the Taylor Group. I forget their name. But I would love for them to tell the political contributions that this company makes, or that their individuals that the executive make, and see how different they are from how different those values are from those of their workers.
And sometimes they'll just throw money on both sides.
Oh, sure.
Which is,
totally.
if you have a lot of money, that's a good idea.
Fair
enough. You're covered either way.
Yeah.
That was something that I was thinking about while you were talking. I just was wondering what kind of profile these folks have. And of course, there's always the workers and the management and the upper echelon or whatever. They may be completely different in their political beliefs, but the money's generally coming from way up high.
Yeah.
So, did we go through all them bullet points?
Yeah, I think so.
I think the sanctuary was the last one.
Yeah. If I'm missing something, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure that's it.
Might pop back in just in the course of conversation.
Sure.
Well, going back over these paid holidays and health care and all that, now that is usually contingent upon full-time. Do they have full-time and part-time workers, and is there that distinction?
For healthcare reasons, I think part-time is described as 30 hours. It used to be less than that. So in order to qualify for healthcare, I for a long time, this is my second job, so I wasn't able to qualify for healthcare through Burgerville. Now I kind of depend on this income. So that's changed. It's about 30 hours. Full-time is above 30 hours, I believe. But part-time or full-time, it's very, very difficult to work at Burgerville, not just for the wages, but also some of the conditions that from what we hear from workers who come and talk to us all the time for Burgerville that aren't organized yet. The conditions are pretty bad and dire. And once the union, one of the things that we do know, not to go off on too much of a tangent here, but one of the things that we do take a lot of pride in is the difference in how the relation between worker and management is before the union and after union becomes a presence in the shop. So before the union became present in my shop, managers were very untoward towards workers, very mean sometimes, or often, depending on the manager. There was, very much a no tolerance policy. I remember I got written up for being late by 2 minutes. I've never worked a job in my life where I didn't get a 5-minute grace period. 2 minutes, and I got written up for that. And to me at the time it wasn't a big deal, but if you're a worker and you're supporting someone, or you need that income, and you get written up, and this is potentially something that can ultimately mean that you're going to be dismissed and lose your income. That's a real threat. That level of viciousness against workers is a threat to their income, to their livelihoods. Once the union came in, became present, and once now we have in my shop, we have an incredible amount of an overwhelming amount of the workers in my shop are members of the union. It's very hard to find a person who's not a union in my shop, and the difference is just night and day. Managers respect workers, not necessarily because they want to, but because they know that that's the new norm, because there will be repercussions if they don't.
Well, that's a whole solidarity thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
One drop of water doesn't mean much, but you get that all together, or the old fingers and fist thing, and it all makes sense. And I was thinking you were gonna say that before this whole unionizing, they were pretty friendly with the and nice, and then they turned sour.
Corporate is very sour.
Yeah, I can imagine. So. Well, so if you're full time, do you have health care and paid holidays and all that, or is that something that you're wanting across the board then?
Yeah, we do. I think every worker who comes, I think no worker should not have health care. I think that in negotiations, we can talk what that number is. I think every worker who works at Burgerville deserves health care. No person should face financial ruin because they get sick or something happens to them. I just think that's ridiculous. And all our workers think that's ridiculous. So I would say that all workers, but we should decide this in negotiations and fix a number. Right now, it's above 30 hours an average in a given period that you can qualify for health care. But depending on the precariousness of scheduling, that's the other one. Fair scheduling is part of our demands.
Of course, the bullet points. Yeah.
But depending on the precariousness of scheduling, a lot of times, or most of the time, scheduling is dependent on the whims of a manager, whether they like you or not, whether you're close to them or not, or whether they just feel like you're useful or not. Whether or not you're a good worker or not has nothing to do really on what hours you get. And it's just based on the whims of a manager. And so that can be really disastrous if you want to keep your health care. Or if you want to know how many hours you're going to make. It's a really bad system.
You have to be able to make plans.
Yeah, absolutely.
People are on a budget, and I'm sure that even the people making a lot of that money is on a budget. It's just a bigger budget.
Yeah, convention center.
Understand that.
Yeah, so convention center went on strike on Labor Day. And one of the demands that they went on strike for that day was to bring attention to 2-week scheduling. It's an incredibly simple thing for the company to do, is 2-week scheduling, 2 weeks out. And it has real effects on people's lives. One of the examples at Convention Center was there was a worker who had to go to a friend's funeral, a good friend of theirs. And because of the scheduling system, he didn't know if he had that time available to go to the funeral. 2-week scheduling is an incredibly simple thing to do. The company has refused to give in to this, to pay attention to the needs of their workers, simply because they do not want to give in to anything we ask.
The old slippery slope thing.
Yeah. They just don't want us. They just don't want us to be giving in to workers. They have all the power and we have nothing. It's unfortunate. That's the way that they view us.
Yeah, between workers and management, that's very common. But just between people too, it's very understandable. Well, we got about 10 minutes left of this segment, and we should talk a little bit about what happened on. Before I ask that, though, these Burgervilles, and they're all pretty much in Portland then. So there's no Burgervilles outside the Portland area that are involved.
Vancouver, Washington. Yeah,
but not Salem or anything. I know there's one there.
Corvallis. I think it's Corvallis. I think is the other one.
But
that's farthest out.
They're meeting up. They joined into the meetings and all. Oh, that's good to know. But anyway, there was an action on November 10th, and apparently folks want to go to your Facebook page. They can see some video and find out a little bit about that. There's a little 15-minute video, I think, on there where some folks met up afterwards and were talking about the experience. But what was that experience? Had to do with the security company.
Yeah. So a couple weeks ago, we had on Friday we had a picket at the Convention Center Burgerville to once again bring attention to management that you should negotiate with your workers and and talk to us about wages and conditions. And the company either directly, we don't know, either directly or through Bullard Law, which is the anti-union busting law firm that they've hired at probably an incredible expense because these things don't come cheap, to bust our union and intimidate workers. Either directly or through that anti-union law firm, hired a security company. And these security goons follow us pretty much at every picket. We've heard from people that they know our names specifically of particularly active members. And most of the time, they just try to egg us on into responding, and usually in vain. And what happened at the convention center at Burgerville, we marched from the MLK statue, where we usually do, up to the convention center at Burgerville. We walked inside chanting, I believe it was Solidarity Forever at the time. And, and the theme song to Malcolm in the Middle, which is,
All right.
which if you think about it is kind of a labor song. They came at us. They shut the door, forcefully started pushing an organizer from SEIU.
And this Burgerville was open at the time.
Yeah, it was absolutely open. We started coming in from one door. They started pushing people out, physically pushing people, including an organizer from SEIU. And then we went to the other entrance, and we came in, and we started singing songs. It was fairly packed. Some of the customers were singing the songs with us. So we come in. There was several, but this particular, I'm going to refer to them as goons, goon security officer, came towards us very forcefully. And me and some other workers and supporters were in the front of it, singing these songs, and they immediately came up and pushed us all very violently. There was this one supporter who was grabbed by his shirt several times and jerked around. One attempt, he turned around and he says, "Hey, you can't do that," and he pushed it back. And then I was next to him, and he pushed me very forcefully, and it's really threatening.
Did they tell you that you must leave or anything first?
They said a multitude of things. They said you're trespassing, but this is while they're hitting us. You're trespassing. They saw I was wearing my Burgerville hat. It's like, you're gonna be fired. This is illegal. We're gonna arrest all of you. Things like that. When they started pushing and shoving us and grabbing people by their shirts and pulling them around, I remember there was a worker there, a coworker and shop steward in my shop, Nikki, who she was supposed to speak at that point and say a little bit about how our shop supports the convention center workers. She was too afraid from this violence. She went to the back and wasn't able to speak. There was other people there, who were a bit older, who I was also afraid for, right behind me. It's kind of a scary situation, and it brought up a dilemma where we want to feel comfortable enough to tell workers to come to these events and show power and show leadership.
Of course.
But if the possibility of them being harmed physically, and a company like Burgerville that apparently has as of yet not responded to the violence of either their employees or the people they hire, is really shocking, because that puts a chilling effect on organizing and on people voicing their opinion if their civil rights are going to be violated if they carry out an action.
Well, that was what they were doing.
Exactly.
That's why they did it.
Yeah.
So I know there's a phone number. I hope we got that written down. It's a Washington number. 360-694-1521. There it is. Now, who is that? Is that the security company, or is that Burgerville up on the that number that was off your website?
Oh, yeah.
It's to call in and bitch them out. But who are they bitching out?
Is that the?
Yeah, that's us right up there.
Is that the number? I'm not sure if that's the number for. Is it the number for the that we put on the website for people to call?
For people to call.
Oh, okay, then then definitely, if that's the case and that's corporate, by all means call. There's a pre-made script. That was the most fouls I've looked in this interview. But yeah, because I want to make sure people are calling. It's not just someone's aunt. There's a script there that you can use or change around and tailor it to what you think exactly and why you think this is important.
Where is that script?
It is on the Facebook page. You can go there, read it, tell management what you think this means to you, why you think it's a really harmful thing that this company has as of yet not responded and apologized to us for being assaulted. We're workers, we're their employees, they should care about us, they say serve with love. The people you hire assaulted us. and violated civil rights for voicing our views.
And you have it recorded on tape.
We do.
However.
Yeah. Well, so we have also a 15-minute video on the Facebook page where an hour after the incident, while everything was fresh, we tell exactly what happened and how we feel about it. And there is some footage. We're still looking for footage, and we're still looking for everything we possibly can. The DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, had a bit of footage there that we posted up on their Twitter. And we're currently talking to as many people right now and seeing exactly what we can do about this, because this can't be repeated. We're going to have pickets in the future, and we will absolutely want to make sure that our workers and the community is safe. And this begins with Burgerville. The ball is in their court to admit what they did and apologize for it and make sure and rectify that this doesn't happen again. And we have the picture of the exact goon that did that. And there was others. Another worker, Chris Merkel, was assaulted by another one, shoved in front at the exact same thing. Really just intimidation to make us feel unsafe.
That's all part of union busting. But, they're not the only burger in town. And I would think that possibly that maybe, in the heat of that, there could be some customers who could get caught in that melee too.
Absolutely.
As well. And
Absolutely.
so the customers should be concerned about this too, not just folks that are involved in wanting to get, the rights of workers unionized.
Yeah.
So we're getting close to the end here. Boy, we could just go on. There's a lot going on, but you just might kind of just knock them bullet points off real quick. None of them sounded to me like you were really asking for too much.
No. What we're asking for is for Burgerville to sit down and negotiate with their workers, so that we can negotiate for a $5 an hour increase in wages, for paternity and maternity care, for affordable health care, for safe working conditions, and for fair and decent scheduling, so we can plan our lives, and to voluntarily for the company to remove itself from E-Verify, in defense and in support of the immigrant community here in Oregon.
I imagine there's a fair amount of immigrants that work for the various Burgervilles.
Absolutely, and there's also a lot of immigrants that don't, but need jobs and are good workers and would love to work at Burgerville, specifically with the union, who are afraid to do so because they're afraid that they'll hear a knock from ICE and they'll be the last time they see their families, and that's an undue burden on Black and brown communities. And
you say that the union you're seeking to join is the IWW?
Oh no, we are affiliated with so the Burgerville Workers Union is an independent organization run by workers, but we are affiliated with the IWW. I'm a member of the IWW. Others are too. We're affiliated with the Industrial Workers of the World, and proudly so. They have a great history of fighting for the 8-hour workday, and fighting for workers' rights, and we make no bones about our views and our affiliation.
Well, they go back a ways. They go back to days when people weren't just getting shoved; they were getting heads busted.
Absolutely,
and that's something to be concerned about. And I guess we should just finish it off here with just mention your websites and your Facebook page, all your electronic locations here.
Sure,
because that's what it's all about these days.
Yeah. Follow us at burgervilleworkersunion.org. That's our website. If you want to be active in the campaign, that's where to go. Also, you have go to our Facebook page where we have a lot of communication with people and most of where our media goes through at Facebook, Burgerville Workers Union. Particularly if you were there at the picket or nearby and saw what happened, please contact us as soon as possible. Get the information out. If you have video or pictures from what happened, please get that to us as soon as possible, because we really want to defend workers, and the more information we can get out there, and the more things we have, the better we can defend our workers in the future.
You might plan your next one during daylight hours, though, but that was pretty dark. That makes it a little difficult. But I don't know what your exact purposes were. So
we'll make sure we have video evidence next time these people think that they can intimidate us.
Well, the thing is, I don't know. Video cameras, you tend to have a little bit of more leeway with poor light conditions than you do with cell phones.
The best support we can obviously get is the community to show up. The more people are out there at our picket lines, the more secure our workers are. So if you really feel like defending us and you really feel like you want to make a difference and help organize the first ever fast food workers union in the country, join the picket line.
Right, and the best way to do that is just to not just go to your website or your Facebook page to find out what's going on with you folks, but keep looking at it, because that's when they'll know when these actions.
Exactly.
You do let these actions, put these actions out.
Yeah.
because then
We
you
do.
know then they know you're coming probably because they're watching those too.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's it.
Mhm.
All right, Mark. Well, I sure appreciate you coming on and talking about this. I had a lot of curiosity about it, and we'll